Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 840. And in today's episode, we're going into how to stop people pleasing. It is a common kind of subject which kind of pops up when people reach out to me, that ultimately they feel like they have to or they need to people please in order to feel okay. But the reality is they never do feel okay, because it only leads to these high expectations, what we place upon ourselves, which also feeds into their expectations, because that becomes the normal that you go ahead and people please. And that means the balance of relationship can be very, very uneven, even to the point where you'll get taken advantage of. People will go, this person does this, so therefore they're going to keep on doing it, and even add more things to the things that you'd be doing. And it can become such a big issue, because ultimately, no matter what we do, we never feel good on the inside by people pleasing. We never feel enough, and we just feel more exhausted. It's a very tiring process when it comes to people pleasing. And we can go into the origins of where and how it came about soon. But at first, I want us to get into how we do it. Like, what is the how? What is the process? And this is where you get to ask questions, because this episode is about making the unconscious conscious, becoming consciously aware of the unconscious processes of people pleasing. Because otherwise, it's just going to remain dormant, but activated beneath the surface. It's just dormant to you. You don't know why you do what you do, how you do it. And it's an important first step for you to discover that, to understand it, to figure out where the triggers are, when it happens, how it happens in the present moment or in the very recent past or the future. For when you do, you can start to do something about it. And then we can talk about, why did it come into existence soon? But the first thing I want you just to do is notice, if you consider and welcome in your mind the experience of people pleasing, notice when it happens. Just notice. Is it a certain person, or is it a certain kind of person? Because we can attract people who represent the same kind of people. So maybe it's authoritative people. Maybe it's when it's in relationships, friendships, where we feel like, to be a good friend, so in the context of friend, I must feel obligated to do X, Y, Z. I have to, I need to, I've got to, in order to not rock the boat, in order to not feel bad or to upset the person. So just welcome into your mind, how do you experience it? When does it actually happen? What is your process? Because it's going to be different from other people. You're going to have different contexts. So it could be in the workplace. It could be in the family setup. It could be in all of those, of course. So welcome those too. But in order to be able to start making the shift that is absolutely needed, you have to understand that context of where it shows up in your life. Is it a specific kind of person? So it could be for the narcissistic person or someone who represents narcissistic behaviors and traits. Is it the person of authority, where we feel like we're looking up to them because they're above us, and therefore we must try to please them in some way? Is it in the relationship? Is it in the friendship? Is it in family, siblings, children? Just be conscious of it. There's nothing bad about being conscious. It is the first step to realizing what's really happening, actualizing it and go, oh my goodness, now this makes sense. It happens in these certain situations too. For some people, if you notice, it could be under stress. It could be in, like I said, the different context of areas of our life. But just consider what that is for you. Notice maybe when it happens. So you could bring to in your mind right now a past situation where this has happened, right? It could be like today, it could be last week, it could be a more of a significant event because it's just easier to understand. Notice those categories or that kind of person or the type of person, and then ask yourself what was happening just before you were going to people please. What was the feeling that you had? What was the thought that you had? What was maybe the consequence if you didn't do it? If you didn't people please? Because when you think about the consequence of not doing it, it makes us want to do it, right? So it could be something like, well, I needed to people please because I didn't want to create this kind of disharmony with this person. I didn't want them to be mad at me. I didn't want them to think less of me. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to disturb things. I didn't want to annoy them or get them mad. Just notice that. Whatever it is for you, it's going to be different for other people. Just notice right before or just before what thought you had and what feeling accompanied it. Notice that. Notice if you didn't do it, what did that mean to you on an identity level? Because we can have a thought of, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to upset someone, I don't want to make someone mad. We can have the feeling of the worry and the anxiety, the stress and the dread and the nervousness, the fear of being found out, because that can be a people-pleasing thing as well, right? When you think about it, if you're in a job situation or even in a relationship as well, be like, well, I better people-please because I don't want them to find out that I don't think I'm good enough to be here. So you try to overcompensate, you try to over-deliver in the fear of being found out, right? So just notice that. Just bring it to your awareness. It could be one of these things, but it also could be many of these things, or one or many. Just notice, what is your identity attached to that? If I don't do this, it must mean something external, like I don't want to upset them, but also it all might mean I am not fill in the blank. I must do this because I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm worthy. And if I don't feel I'm worthy, then I'm going to try to people please to try to get that external validation. Because if that one person goes, you did a good job, it's going to try to make me feel better. You know, oh my goodness, at least that person thinks I'm good at my job. Of course, it never fills you up fully, but notice whatever that identity statement is, or that identity of that thought that you have about yourself, if you fulfill the people pleasing, or in the fear if you don't, it will probably come up with the same idea or belief about yourself. So just notice that. Once again, we're making the unconscious conscious. Usually this happens lightning quick. It happens without even thinking about it. It's automatic because it is unconscious. But in order to stop it, we must break it down into a strategy. Everything you do is a strategy. People tend to think, well, depression is this huge thing, which it is. That this anxiety is a huge thing, which it is. The imposter syndrome is a huge thing, which it is. But it's also a strategy, a sequence of events of something external and internal connecting. So I see this and it causes me to feel this way. That person asked me to do this and it causes this internal reaction or chain reaction that I've got to do certain things, fulfill their needs or be able to help them, or to do all the examples that we've given so far. So if you don't know, if you're listening to this on the podcast, this is being broadcasted live, and we've got some answers here. So we've got like anxiety kicks in beforehand, dealing with a difficult parent as a child. We've got things like anxiety, shame, fear, and sadness. We've got dread. We've got not wanting to rock the boat, walking on eggshells. So you see how many people have the same kind of issue. Does any of those answers resonate with you as well? Because it can be a universal experience. You might use it or experience it in a very unique way because you're going to have different kinds of people or situations. But because it is a strategy, you might go, well, that's kind of me as well. Now we're starting to understand. We're understanding what is our boundary here, or the lack of boundaries, the lack of self-value, the lack of that self-certainty. Go, no, not today. Notice that. And I'm going to be playful here because this can be a bit of a wake-up call. I want you to think about the consequences of saying no. What is the reality of that? Is it a real reality that the whole world is going to crumble and we're going to have a real bad experience, we're going to get found out, we're going to get sacked, or we're going to have a relationship broken up? Or is there a level of us distorting our reality filter? Is that consequence a real reality? Sometimes we might go, oh my goodness, it's not. When I really think about it, the worst case scenario is not really that bad, or it's not going to happen. So just notice that. Just notice. Is it real? It's going to be illusionary anyway, right? Because we're having it in our mind, growing and thinking, and all those connections, those neuro associations around people pleasing. But just notice the consequence if you did not do the people pleasing behaviors. Now, we've gained this extra insight as to when it happens, with whom it happens with. It can be one or many. It can be the external triggers, the internal representation of what it means, of how it makes us feel, how it causes us to identify by ourselves, or maybe we're not good enough or worthy, or we're an imposter. We're becoming consciously aware of these. Now think about the intention. So we're going kind of deep. What is the intention behind the behavior? Forget about how bad it is, right? We know people pleasing is not a very nice thing. We know the consequences we stated in the beginning of the fear, the worry, the dread, the exhaustion of just people pleasing. But what is the intention behind the unconscious mind for doing so? And I bet your answer was to protect you in some way. Because if we don't want to rock the boat, if we don't want to upset someone, we're trying to intentionally protect ourselves or protect that relationship or protect that situation, to not get sacked or to not leave the job or to not leave that relationship. So it's almost like the behavior of people pleasing with all those consequences still has a positive intent as to what it's trying to do. And I believe for most, if not everyone, it's going to be a protective safety mechanism. What does that mean for us? What does that really mean though? Because now we're starting to discover, yeah, that people-pleasing behavior is bad. The consequence is bad. But we're now starting to understand that your body, your mind, the unconscious part of us, is trying to protect. Isn't that great? Like, at least have some level of gratitude. I know that we don't like the behavior. Separate the behavior from the intent and just go, well, at least my body, my unconscious mind, my subconscious, or whatever we want to term it, is trying to protect you. That's good news. Because it's not doing it for ill reasons. It's not doing it to try to hurt you. It's not trying to get you conflicted. It's not trying to get you exhausted. It's not trying to make you live in fear and dread on purpose. Behind that consequence is the positive intent of safety and protection. Good news, right? That means we've just got to convince the unconscious mind there's another way of being safe without the behavior of people pleasing. Because there are other ways of being safe. There are other ways of being protected. You may not know how yet, but there are better ways. For example, for the person who had the identity belief of, well, I'm not good enough. Well, if you felt good enough, the chances are you're safe and protected and without the people pleasing. Like if you were just good enough and worthy and deserving and capable, you wouldn't feel the need to over deliver on all those things. You'd be going, okay, I'm good. I have a high value for myself. I have these boundaries. So therefore, I'm not going to get taken advantage of. The narcissistic, I can cut out my life because I'm more than that. So we can understand that the intention is good, and if we flip that limiting belief to something which is the opposite or in similar to the opposite belief, you're going to go, wow, I can make that change. It's still unconscious, of course, right? We're not going to say, well, just that's it, I've solved it, because your unconscious mind is running this identity or these associations and these decisions, trying to protect you, and it will keep on doing the people-pleasing behavior until there's another way of doing it being safe. There's another way of being you and being safe. Otherwise, it's just going to resort to doing it. Just keep on doing the same old thing. Like for people who have fears and phobias, they can know it's illogical. In fact, I think the unconscious mind knows it's a little bit illogical, but the intention is safety and protection, and it hasn't got a better strategy. It's only got the strategy that it learned long ago, which then goes into the why it is here. Now, when I say why, I'm not looking for reasons and excuses to go, well, I'm a people pleaser because I went through all their stuff and that means I can't change. It's just who I am. That's not empowering to me. That's not how life should work. I want to know the why it happened or how it came into existence to break free of those reasons and stories. Because how many stories have you been telling yourself about this? The people who use and abuse, the people, I've always got to do X, Y, Z. You're just spinning these stories in your mind which become concrete as a truth for you, that this is the only way that you can be. But when you go and understand the origin of the creation of the people pleasing, I bet it's going to happen in two ways. Could be, and they're going to be one of the same in a way. So number one, when you're very young. Very, very young. Maybe not you were always a people pleaser, but you had some kind of anxiety or worry or dread. I mean, it could have been people pleasing back then. You were going to have like some confidence issues or lack of esteem or anything like that. And when you're young, maybe your environment, it could be because your parents weren't that nice or they placed a lot of expectation on you. So if you had a high expectation, that means you've always got to fulfill that expectation, and that means you've got to fulfill everyone's expectations, whoever they place them upon you. Or after a while, you just place those expectations on yourself without them even knowing. Like you just presume in your mind that that's what they expect, when in reality, maybe they haven't even asked for you to people please. So the origins can be when we're very young, where we made decisions based on what we thought were good. Once again, positive intentions, safety and protection. The other thing is, at that time, maybe you were under a lot of stress. Maybe you didn't have all the knowledge and wisdom to choose differently, so based on the quality of your experience in that distress, you go, well, I must do this. Unconsciously, not consciously, unconscious decisions were made, which then formulated these stories and these expectations and these behaviors to keep on people pleasing, where we never really felt it. The other option is maybe it's in recent times, but still there was a level of significance of event or events that made us draw to the conclusion that we're not enough or worthy and we must people please. For example, maybe everything was pretty much good growing up. Maybe everyone was good at school or university if you went. But maybe you fell in the wrong crowd, or maybe you had a boss who put you under a lot of stress. Maybe there was that one bad relationship a few years ago. And because of that one event or a series of events, you then make that decision because you were under stress. Maybe you found yourself with a narcissistic and they just beat you down until you just had to comply, for this is what it is. I must people please. Same thing with boss, same thing with relationship. But either way, it can happen when we're very young, under stress, we didn't know different, or it can happen when we're kind of old. Not old, we're never old, we're just getting younger, right? Let's have a positive suggestion there. We had a significant event, situation, which our unconscious mind felt, oh my goodness, can't handle this. I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I don't want to rock the boat, so I must always do this to try to get out of the same kind of pain of that situation, to avoid it happening again. So now we've discovered a few things. We discovered when and how and the kinds of people, the situations. We've understood what happens just before. What is the feeling? What is the idea or thought that we have? We've now also understood maybe there's a belief system about our own self-value. We've understood maybe there was some expectations growing up, or abuse, or bad situations growing up, and we just didn't have the knowledge or the information to choose anything different because we were a kid. Think about it. If you've had esteem issues or people-pleasing issues ever since you were, say, 5 years old, how much knowledge did you have as a 5-year-old? How much life experience did you have? It's easy to see how we can just assume certain beliefs about ourselves and the world when we're very young because we didn't know different. But now as an adult, it's time to change that. It's time to recognize what this is about, to understand where it came from, not for validation to keep you the same, but to almost go, well, that's not me now. I'm ready to choose something different today. I'm ready to reclaim my power. I'm ready to enforce my boundaries. I'm ready to raise my self-standard of my value, to know that I'm worthy, deserving enough, and start putting this to work. Now, it's not always going to be easy because it's unconscious, but now we know. Now we know some of the reasoning and what's happening beneath the surface, making, as I said, the unconscious conscious, for you to become consciously aware of what you've been doing beneath the surface. So with that, in the next episode, we'll be doing a hypnosis session around this. And also, if you're got the app and you're a part of like a member of the app, you'll get a bonus sleep version of it as well. And that means you can just listen to it as you go to sleep. It won't awaken you out of trance. It'll just cause you to drift off in the most deep, powerful way. And that means you just transform while you sleep. But I hope you got some value from this, just the understanding, the breakdown, the insight, because it's going to be very important for you to catch yourself when this happens, and also to be able to use this as momentum, as a leveraging system for when we do the hypnosis session. You're going to go, now I know what I'm doing. This is what we're going to do. Now I know how it came about in a rough way, even if you don't know specifically. You have an idea, unconsciously there was a decision made. You know that that's not who you are, it's just what you chose unconsciously for the best of intentions. But here's the other thing. If you didn't come into this world as a people pleaser, in other words, something happened somewhere along the line, recent years, time, week, days, or maybe growing up when you're very young. Usually in sociology, they say between 0 and 7. But the good news is this. If you can choose to decide to be a people pleaser at an unconscious level for those intentions, I'm not saying you consciously go, oh, I'm going to be a people pleaser for the rest of my life. No, unconsciously to decide this, it means you can also undecide things. You can choose different things. It means you are not broken. It means you are not unfixable. It means it's not who you are, it's what you just assume to be true for those positive intentions. And if we can assume it to be true, we can assume other truths, other realities, other perceptions of self when it comes to our identity and our self-worth and our self-value and all those things. And my intention is to be able to help you with that going through the hypnosis session on the free section, the day version, and then obviously, like I said, the bonus one as well within the app as well. So I look forward to speaking to you on the next episode, because that means that's when we're going to start to deepen this change. So with that, having got the conscious knowledge of this, it's time to make that change on the next episode. And of course, you can go ahead and get the app at, if you haven't got it already, freehypnosis.app. You'll see the free section, there's hypnosis section, there's a custom section where you can create your own audios, and they're all in day and night, the hypnosis and the custom tracks. You just hit from the sun to the moon to make it a sleep version, extension. You can also heart it. You can download the track for offline listening. You can repeat the tracks if you want. You can also go and we've got these like 4-hour sleep sessions as well. So that means you just transform while you sleep throughout the night. And on top of that, we've got programs, we've got audio programs, in other words, we've got create your own custom playlist. So much is coming to the app. There's what it's like right now. And also we've got these create your day meditations as well. 10 minutes a morning, listen to it, and it'll create your day with your unconscious mind. It will supercharge you to do the things which has to be done. So that's at freehypnosis.app, or if you go to your app store, Google Play or the Apple App Store, type in my name, Joseph Clough, or type in hypnosis and say Joseph, and it should appear right at the top. You install it, you get free access to everything for 7 days, and then you can still have all the free section. If you don't, there's no subscription created unless you just want a part of all the other stuff. And based on my research, we are actually a third of all other apps on the App Store when it comes to hypnosis and meditations. We're actually at a 70% discount. So get as much value as you can by doing so. And that means we get to change together. And if you enjoy my work, please go ahead and leave a review. But with that, I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode, which will be all around the hypnosis of this session. Many thanks and goodbye.